In 2026, the automotive market is more competitive and confusing than ever. There are cars with more screens, more power, and more promises than at any other time, but not all represent a good long-term decision. Some can become a constant expense, while others, on the contrary, offer balance, efficiency, and real durability. In this analysis, we will look at the 4 worst cars you could buy this year and the 5 best, evaluating engineering, reliability, real consumption, and total cost of ownership. 4. Compact turbo SUVs from new brands without established history. In 2026, the market is full of compact SUVs that seem like an irresistible bargain. Giant screens, futuristic LED lighting, driving assistance, electric seats, panoramic roof, 360-degree camera, wireless connectivity, over-the-air updates. All at a price that makes traditional models seem outrageously expensive. You enter the dealership, sit inside, and the first impression is brutal. The screen is huge, the finish feels premium, the technology seems cutting edge, and the salesperson tells you that you are buying the future. The problem is that the future also has to work 3, 4, 5 years down the line, and that's exactly where many of these proposals start to show their cracks. Because many of these offers come from manufacturers who still do not have a solid reliability history outside their home market. It's not that they are bad engineers, it's that building a reputation takes time. It requires real usage cycles, extreme climate, accumulated kilometers under conditions that are not from a lab. And that cannot be simulated, it has to be experienced. Traditional brands have been learning for decades what fails, what to correct, what to reinforce. New brands are learning that right now, and whoever buys one of these vehicles may involuntarily become part of that learning process. The big risk is not in the first 20,000 kilometers. In that stretch, almost any modern car performs well. The real problem appears when the vehicle surpasses 80,000 or 100,000 kilometers and thermal cycles, wear in the gearbox, and fatigue in electronic components start to accumulate. That is when the difference between a consolidated brand and an emerging one becomes concrete and costly. That's when you find out if that huge screen still works properly or starts giving random errors. If that driver assistance system remains accurate or starts to offer false alerts. If that transmission is still smooth or begins to hesitate on the most basic shifts. Many of these SUVs use very tight 1.5 or 1.6 turbo engines with high pressures to compensate for the small size. The idea is to offer enough power with low consumption. Under ideal conditions, it works. But in real conditions, heavy traffic, variable fuel quality, high ambient temperatures, constant urban use with starts and stops, that constant effort accelerates wear. The turbo works under permanent pressure, the oil degrades faster, mechanical tolerances shrink, and if maintenance is not strictly punctual, the margin of error is drastically reduced. Adding to that is the frequent use of dry, dual-clutch DCT transmissions. These gearboxes work very well in smooth driving at constant speed on the highway, but in the city, with constant starts and stops, with traffic that stops and goes, the clutch suffers. It is not designed for that repetitive and intense cycle. Over time, vibration appears on starts, imprecision in slow shifts, premature wear on the clutches. Replacement usually isn't cheap. In some markets, there is not even enough spare parts stock, and the wait time can stretch to weeks with the car immobilized. It is also necessary to talk about electronic systems. In the search to offer technology at low cost, many of these manufacturers use software and hardware suppliers with less experience in automotive integration. The result can be software updates that generate new errors, screens that reboot on their own, sensors that lose calibration. And when you try to resolve that in the service center, sometimes even the technician lacks the tools or updated diagnostics to fix it. Another critical point is depreciation. In 2026, the used market has already started to heavily punish new brands without a track record. The second-hand buyer is conservative. They prefer to pay a little more for something known than to risk something with an unclear history. A flashy SUV today can lose almost half its value in 3 years if the market perceives doubts about its durability, not because it is necessarily bad, but because the perception in the secondary market penalizes it. Buying one might feel modern. Selling it can feel like bearing an unnecessary loss. Are there exceptions? Yes, some new brands are doing a serious job, but in 2026 they still do not have the accumulated kilometers to prove it convincingly. and that is exactly the problem. 3. Sedans and hatchbacks that have not received a real structural update in the last decade. There are still models that survive in the market by price and because they've always been reliable. These are cars with a loyal buyer base. People who know them, who know how they behave, who trust them, and that loyalty has historical sense. But if the platform is more than 10 years old without a deep redesign, you are buying old engineering in a market that has radically changed. And this is important to understand well. We are not talking about a body change. We are not talking about a new screen or updated LED headlights. We are talking about the vehicle's basic architecture, how it absorbs impacts, the rigidity of its structure, how it manages energy in an accident, the geometry of its suspensions. Those things do not change with a facelift. They require a real, deep, costly redesign. In 2026, active safety is no longer optional. The most relevant evaluation agencies worldwide now require advanced autonomous braking systems with pedestrian and cyclist detection in nighttime conditions. They require adaptive cruise control with real lane centering, not just lane departure alerts. They require blind spot monitoring that not only alerts but actively intervenes if it detects you are going to change lanes with a vehicle present. If a model does not offer these technologies completely and correctly integrated, it is not at the current market level. And in some markets, soon it will not pass the most demanding evaluations. But beyond the electronics, the problem is structural. Older platforms were not designed with current torsional rigidity standards. They were not conceived with the high-strength materials used today, those ultra-high-strength steels that allow thinner but stiffer walls. That impacts dynamic behavior, impact absorption, cabin noise, the vehicle's overall efficiency. A car with an old platform simply cannot compete in those terms with one designed in the last 5 years. Many of these cars maintain old, naturally aspirated engines that were efficient at the time but are now below the best segment metrics. They come with first-generation CVT transmissions that were not designed to last 300,000 kilometers under intense use. Over time, vibrations begin to appear, response delays, progressive wear that the driver begins to notice before diagnostics confirm it. They are not disastrous cars. That must be clarified. They fulfill their basic function. They transport people from one point to another, but they are simply outdated. And as the market continues to advance, they will quickly become obsolete in resale value. Whoever buys them today can find themselves in 2 or 3 years with a car that the secondary market no longer values well, not because it broke down, but because the world simply moved on and that model did not keep up. 2. Affordable electric cars without a robust support network. Electrification is the future. That is not in dispute. The technology is real, the advantages are concrete, and the automotive world is moving in that direction irreversibly. But not all electric cars are the same, and in 2026 there are models that arrived with aggressive prices to quickly capture market, build sales volume, establish brand presence. The problem is that their service network is still developing, their technical support infrastructure is still incomplete, and that can turn what seemed like a great purchase into a permanent source of frustration. LFP batteries, lithium iron phosphate, have real advantages. They are chemically more stable, better tolerate full charge cycles, have lower risk of severe thermal degradation. But overall thermal management remains key. In very hot climates, with temperatures consistently above 35 or 40 degrees, degradation can accelerate if the cooling system is not well designed. The same occurs in extremely cold climates. The battery loses efficiency, range drops, and if the thermal conditioning system is not sophisticated, that repeated cooling and heating cycle impacts pack life. Additionally, many affordable electric vehicles depend entirely on software for almost all their functions. The engine, regenerative braking, energy management, climate control, assistance systems, everything runs through software. And if the brand does not have a solid development team with constant updates, electronic problems can turn into prolonged headaches. Errors without a clear diagnosis, behaviors that appear and disappear, intermittent failures that the technical service cannot reproduce and therefore cannot solve. The declared autonomy is often optimistic. Homologation tests are conducted under controlled conditions that rarely match real use. With air conditioning running constantly, that figure can drop between 20 and 30%. With heating in cold climates, the impact can be even greater. And if in your region the charging infrastructure is not yet fully developed, if fast chargers are scarce or often occupied or out of service, daily use may become less practical than it seemed in advertising. And here is the most important part. When an electric vehicle from a consolidated brand has a software problem, there are thousands of technicians worldwide trained to solve it. There are diagnostic databases. There are established protocols. When an electric vehicle from a new brand has the same problem, your local dealership may have to wait for a response from central engineering. The solution may come in days, weeks, or it may simply not come satisfactorily. It's not that an electric car is a bad decision. It's that choosing one without strong technical support in 2026, in markets where infrastructure and support are not yet mature, can be 1. Large SUVs with small turbo engines pushed to the limit. Here is one of the most common mistakes that will be made in 2026, and it is a mistake that seems smart on paper. SUVs of nearly 2 tons with generous space, full equipment, imposing look, equipped with 1.3 or 1.5 turbo engines that show very low consumption in the homologation cycle. That on paper comply with the most demanding emission regulations. That in the catalogue have a reasonable power figure. The problem is that this engine was not designed to move that vehicle. It was designed to meet a number on a specification sheet. In real conditions, with that SUV loaded with family and luggage, climbing a slope with the air conditioning at full load at 110 kilometers per hour on a highway. That 1.3-litre engine is permanently working under high load. It has no margin. It cannot relax. Every time you need to accelerate smoothly, every time you have to overtake, every time the terrain changes even slightly, that engine has to exert itself at maximum capacity, and that has consequences. The result is high real consumption, often comparable to larger naturally aspirated engines that are at least sized for the job. The turbo works under permanent pressure, generating heat. Oil temperatures are high. Wear on internal components accelerates. And if oil maintenance is not strictly punctual, the consequences can be severe, because the tolerance margin of that small forced engine does not allow negligence. In the long term, maintenance may be more expensive than expected. The turbo is a component that eventually requires attention. Variable timing actuators, boost pressure management systems, wastegate valves, intake air coolers. All that complexity added to the small engine to make it perform what it could not on its own has a maintenance cost that is not always visible in the initial list price. The top 5. 2026 Toyota Corolla Hybrid. The hybrid Corolla does not seek to impress at first glance. It does not have the largest screen in the segment. It does not have the most aggressive design, nor the most striking interior. It is not the car you will show on social media for its futuristic look. It seeks to do something much harder and much more valuable, to last. And in 2026, when the market is full of proposals that promise too much and deliver less than expected in the long term, that is a huge advantage. An advantage that many buyers only understand after accumulating miles and starting to see the consequences of having chosen poorly. Its hybrid system has more than 2 decades of evolution. That is not a minor fact. That means Toyota has already made the mistakes, corrected them, refined every aspect of the system. The integration between internal combustion and electric motor is proven in millions of vehicles around the world, in extreme climates, under intense use conditions, in markets with variable quality fuels. The energy management software is mature. It knows exactly when to use the electric motor, when to activate the thermal one, when to recover energy during braking. There are no experiments in this system. There are decades of refinement. The service network knows the system perfectly. At any Toyota service point in the world, there are technicians trained with that powertrain. There are specific diagnostic tools. There are clear protocols for each type of intervention. And when something fails, and eventually something can always fail in any car, the resolution time is predictable. You are not waiting for central engineering to send you a software patch. In the city, where most cars spend the majority of their useful time, the electric motor assumes much of the work. At low speeds, in traffic, in parking maneuvers, the thermal engine rests. That reduces real and measurable wear over the years. Fewer combustion cycles in the thermal motor mean less wear on pistons, valves, rings, camshafts. The mechanics last longer because they work less. Depreciation is low because the market already trusts its durability. The second-hand buyer knows what they are buying. They know that a well-maintained Corolla hybrid with 100,000 kilometers is still a reliable car, and that trust has a price that benefits whoever buys it new today because its residual value in 3 or 5 years will remain solid. And when we talk about total cost of ownership, the purchase price plus fuel plus maintenance plus the opportunity cost of depreciation, the hybrid Corolla is often among the most rational in the segment, not by chance, by design. 4. 2026 Mazda CX-5. Mazda maintains a philosophy that in 2026 is refreshing precisely because almost no one else upholds it. Less unnecessary complexity. Not adding technology because it is trendy, not putting systems that impress in presentations but add failure points. Designing well from the base and trusting that structural solidity is worth more than any marketing feature. Its naturally aspirated engines remain a deliberate bet on long-term reliability. They do not depend on extreme boost pressures to perform. They do not have turbochargers that accumulate heat and stress cycle after cycle. They breathe naturally, work within limits with more margin, and the result in terms of durability is concrete. An engine that does not work at the limit of its capacity simply lasts longer. It is a basic mechanical truth that some manufacturers seem to have forgotten in the race to meet homologation figures. The chassis is rigid, with a structural quality that is felt when driving. When you take a curve, when the road changes surface, when the car responds to your inputs, there is a coherence that numbers do not capture but the driver perceives. The steering is precise and communicative. It is not the smoothest SUV in the world, nor the most insulated. It is an SUV that wants the driver to know what is happening underneath the vehicle. The traditional automatic transmission that Mazda uses in the CX-5 is not the most modern on the market in terms of number of gears or shift times in milliseconds. But it offers something that many more complex modern transmissions cannot guarantee: proven durability. These transmissions under normal maintenance conditions can last the vehicle's lifetime without major interventions. And in a market where dual-clutch boxes start showing problems at 80 or 100,000 kilometers, that has real value. It is not the most technologically advanced SUV on the market. It does not have the largest screen nor the longest list of driver aids. But its mechanical coherence, build quality and design philosophy make it a solid and honest option for those who prioritize real stability over paper specifications. In 2026, when many manufacturers seek to impress with giant screens and features the average buyer does not use, Mazda continues prioritizing driving dynamics and structural quality, and that, in the long term, matters more. 3. 2026 Toyota RAV4 Hybrid. The hybrid RAV4 achieved something genuinely difficult in the modern automotive market, offering a proposal that makes sense in multiple dimensions simultaneously: generous family space, real fuel efficiency, competent dynamic behavior, and an intelligent transition to electrification that does not require radically changing the owner's habits. It offers immediate electric torque at starts and low speeds. This notably improves city response. When the traffic light turns green and the traffic moves, the hybrid RAV4 has that energy instantly available, without waiting for the turbo engine to build pressure, without the minimal but present delay of a naturally aspirated engine that needs to rev up. The response is immediate, smooth, and efficient. But at the same time, it maintains the extended range of the combustion engine for long trips. It does not rely exclusively on external charges. It does not generate anxiety about battery level when you are on a highway far from the city. It does not require planning the route based on charging point locations. When the battery is depleted, the combustion engine takes control, and when there is an opportunity to recover energy, the system does it transparently and automatically. It is an intelligent transition between traditional and pure electric. For the owner who wants to take a step towards electrification without assuming all the commitments that a pure electric still implies in many markets, the hybrid RAV4 is the most rational answer available in 2026. The historical reliability of Toyota's hybrid system gives it a clear advantage in resale value. The used market pays well for a hybrid RAV4 with reasonable mileage because it knows what it is buying. It knows that the system works, that it lasts, that it will not cause unpleasant surprises, and that certainty has a price that benefits those who buy it new today. 2. Honda Civic 2026. The Civic demonstrates in 2026 that a car well designed from the ground up with coherent engineering and without unnecessary excesses can offer a superior user experience compared to flashier and more expensive proposals. It is a car that does not need giant screens to justify its value. It does not need endless lists of electronic systems to convince. It justifies itself from the solidity of its structure and the coherence of its driving. Its modern platform significantly improves torsional rigidity compared to previous generations. That has direct consequences in multiple everyday usage aspects. The cabin is quieter because the structure does not allow vibrations to propagate. The dynamic behavior is more precise because the chassis does not deform under load. The crash behavior is superior because the energy distributes and absorbs more efficiently. And the overall feeling of solidity the driver experiences is not marketing, it is physics. The engines are efficient without being overworked. They are not operating at the limits of their tolerances to meet a consumption figure in the homologation cycle. They have margin, and that margin translates into real durability. Less thermal stress, less wear accumulated per kilometer. An engine that at 150,000 kilometers still operates with the smoothness and efficiency of the first years. The steering is precise and offers genuine feedback. It is not a steering that isolates the driver from what happens on the road. It is a steering that communicates, informs, and makes the act of driving more than simply going from one point to another. In 2026, when many models prioritize marketing over engineering, when technical sheets are designed to impress more than inform, the Civic maintains technical coherence. It is a car that can be trusted long-term because it was built to last, not to dazzle on first contact. 1. Toyota Camry Hybrid 2026. The hybrid Camry is, in 2026, the best available argument for anyone who wants to make a genuinely intelligent purchase decision. Not the most exciting, not the most photogenic, not the one that will generate the most conversation at a dinner, the smartest, the one that in 5 years will be seen as the right choice when someone who chose something flashier is accounting for the accumulated maintenance costs or accepting the blow of an unexpected depreciation. The hybrid Camry represents total balance. The spaciousness of a sedan that can comfortably accommodate 5 adults with a generous trunk and a wheelbase that translates into genuine rear passenger space. Low consumption thanks to a hybrid system with decades of refinement, which in 2026 is at a maturity level no competitor without that trajectory can match. Solid comfort from the first hour and throughout the vehicle's useful life because the structure was designed to maintain that refinement level over time. It is not the most eye-catching on the market, that must be acknowledged honestly. At a dealership, next to a large SUV with a curved screen and headlights that look like they came out of a sci-fi movie, the Camry does not win in first impressions. But first impressions do not pay for maintenance. They do not stop depreciation. They do not reduce visits to the service center. The hybrid system reduces mechanical wear in a real and quantifiable way. The combustion engine does not start cold as frequently as in a conventional car because the electric motor covers low-load moments. This reduces wear cycles. The brakes last longer because regenerative braking assumes much of the deceleration work. The transmission operates within smoother load ranges because the hybrid system's energy management constantly optimizes the drivetrain operation. Operating costs are low. Fuel consumption is notably less than a conventional equivalent. Brake maintenance intervals extend, the engine works within more efficient ranges, and the largest service network in the world, Toyota's network, is available in practically any city worldwide to service this vehicle with available technicians and parts. Its resale value is usually strong thanks to the reputation accumulated over decades. The used market knows what a well-maintained hybrid Camry is worth, and that certainty is reflected in a price that does not collapse over time as happens with less proven proposals. In an increasingly complex, noisy market filled with promises that are not always fulfilled and specifications designed to impress more than inform, the hybrid Camry stands out for something scarce in 2026. It does everything well without unnecessary experiments, without commitments that the owner must assume years later. It is the car that does not need to justify itself. And that is perhaps the best sign that it is the right choice. Choosing well in 2026 is not about flashy design nor the most impressive technical sheet, but about understanding what you are buying and how much it will cost to maintain over time. The difference between a good and a bad decision can mean thousands in maintenance and depreciation. If this analysis was useful to you, subscribe to the channel for more content about cars, comparisons, and smart buying decisions. Leave your opinion in the comments and tell us what model you would add to the list.